My story kind of starts when I was a little kid. I never really grew up going to church. Wanted to go to church, and there was just something in me that always longed for that, but I just didn't grow up in a church-going family. So I was that girl that went to church with her friends when she was younger, or even in high school. If I stayed at their house, they went to church, of course I wanted to go. I had a pretty normal childhood, but growing up I did come from a home where there was some alcohol abuse. So with that, I think even my longing to want to have something to kind of just seek out and have that relationship with God in my life was something that was always there, but it was hard because it wasn't something that I could talk to my mom or dad about. And I didn't really know enough to talk to my friends about either. So later in life, I was a senior in high school, and I found out that my father that I always knew was not actually my biological father. I actually found out from my brother's ex-wife, believe it or not, kind of weird, but we still maintained a relationship, and she actually was there for me a lot when I was growing up. So I know it may sound weird that that's how I found out, but that is how I found out. And I chose not to say anything at the time because at that point, my dad was terminally ill with cancer. He had about a 2.5-year battle with cancer, and it was something that kind of had taken a turn for the worse recently, and I just didn't want to say anything to him, so I didn't. So that was really tough. My best friend knew, my best friend's mom knew, but those were the only people that knew that I knew that information. So I held that within me a lot, and through that, I not only held that in, but I didn't really grieve the loss of my father when he actually passed away. He passed away in March of my senior year. So it was really tough knowing that he was no longer there, the dad that I had always known. And then on top of that, now really starting to think about, well, he wasn't even my real father. Not that he made me ever feel that, but it was just kind of two big blows at one time. And having nothing, not having that family to talk to, not having a relationship with God, I really created a huge hole in my life, and something that I wanted, but I really didn't know how to go about finding it because nobody in my internal circle, it wasn't important to them. So how would I get help trying to make it a priority in my life? So really I kind of tucked it away as far as church, faith. I didn't really have it. I questioned a lot of things. When my dad passed away, he didn't just pass away, but really the family that I always knew passed away with him. He was kind of the glue that held everyone together. When he passed away, my brothers that I had always grown up with and my mom's relationship deteriorated rapidly. So it was like 18 years of my life really just vanished when he passed away as well. So that was really hard. I struggled. I didn't know who I really was, what my place was. I didn't have a family or affirmation. I didn't have people, silly as it sounds, like saying they were proud of me or that they loved me. My mom, dealt with the loss of my dad in her own way, and I didn't understand why, when I did finally confront her about knowing, she was not willing to give up any information. She always alluded to the fact that she was in a relationship with this person, but she didn't remember his last name and just all sorts of stuff that just really made me angry, and I didn't understand. I couldn't believe that someone would do this to her kid. I was just very angry and very bitter, and it put a huge wedge in us, even more so than we were already growing apart. So I went to school for a year, and with the loss of my dad and also not really having that relationship with God, I found myself really looking to another individual for something that really I should have been trying to find within myself, meaning that I kind of was that girl. I wanted to, well, why don't you want to spend time with me? Why do you want to go do this? I kind of, instead of bringing somebody closer, I pushed them away. And looking back, I can see that now. But I just, I didn't know how to carry on a successful relationship. And I didn't have a relationship with my mom. I didn't have any family. My friends were my family, and that was it. So really, that's when I, started to try to seek out him more. But it was just hard. I found it hard in my everyday life. I mean, you're going to school, you want to hang out with your friends, you have your social life. It just, I never put it at the forefront. And it didn't really smack me in the face, so to speak, until, many, many years later, after I had my first child, Harper. She kind of was a game changer. It really made, my husband and I, we had always talked about, we really need to start going to church. Well, we have a Colts game on Sunday, things just it wasn't a priority. It was like, well, how are we going to, we got to sell our tickets. What are we going to do? It just wasn't, looking back, it sounds silly. But I think that's probably, I don't think we're the only people that think like that. I think, you have things that you just have to be willing to give up. But for me, it was not picturing leaving this life and seeing my child again. Made me think about losing my dad. Even though he wasn't my biological father, he's still my dad. I still refer to him as my dad. Sorry. But finally, I had that in-house support system with my husband that I had never had before, as far as, okay, let's make this a priority. And even though he came from a different faith background, and we were both kind of on our own faith journey, we both made the commitment that we wanted to make that first step together. So, of course, we did what anybody did. We tried the church that was closest to our house to see if that would work. And I actually looked on your guys' podcast to see. I was like, I can't remember what the first service was that we attended here last year, but it was the Sunday after Easter, and it was called Starting Point. I don't want to speak for Mike, but obviously it spoke to me. I'm like, it's called Starting Point. This couldn't be more perfect. Everything has a starting point. And, Mike ran into some people that actually were from our neighboring high school growing up. So for him, that was huge because, it's like, oh, well, he goes here. Oh, well, this must be a pretty, cool place. And it just really hit home with me. And I was like, you know what? I don't really want to try anything else. This seems like a good fit. And, if we really like this, Harper will know some people here, as she gets older that, hey, I'll see you at church, that sort of thing. I wanted to give her the opportunity to experience something from a very young age that I never experienced. Not just going to church, but also knowing that no matter what, she'll always have somebody that she can talk to that loves her. Have that experience with God that I didn't. Now, what she chooses to do with that is up to her, but at least we're giving her the opportunity to grow up in a home where that's something that she can have. And, when we did explore Crosspoint very soon after we started, because we leave church, we'd feel great, we'd get some takeaways, we'd go home and try to implement them. It was just, we were really trying to make it a part of our daily life. And, I did the Love Deer. That was really one of the biggest things that I started doing on my own. And it was something that I did. My spouse didn't do it, but I really wanted to do it. And I could just feel the sense of peace in my life that I hadn't felt in a very long time. And I wasn't thinking about why this, why that, worried about work stuff that I always would worry about. I was just like, you know what? I'm doing this because I think something's going to benefit Mike out of this, or something's going to benefit our relationship that in turn benefits Harper. I started doing things not for myself, but really just wanting to better my situation with the relationships of the people in my life. And that, it was just a snowball effect. And I was having conversations with people about church and faith and God, conversations that I never thought I would have with my friends, my coworkers, just became very comfortable just asking questions and talking to people. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I never would have thought that I could have conversations about verses in the Bible or what God is or means to somebody else and kind of get their take on something. It just opened up a whole new world, and I found myself being a better wife, a better friend, a better person. And I feel like I started praying for the first time what prayer is supposed to be about. And I know a couple services ago you mentioned, like, wouldn't it be something if instead of like praying for, certain things, if we actually just started doing those things that we typically pray about and then pray about the other stuff. And I found myself doing that, probably 4 or 5 months in. It was just a huge game change for me. And I'm thinking about my past and my history and my situation with losing my father and not really having that sense of family or that relationship with God. As I grew in my relationship with him, I found a peace with my mom, and I started to let go of the bitterness and the feelings that I had towards her in the situation, and thought, well, maybe there's, other stuff to the story. It's not my place to judge her, or, whatever happened, but I may never know who that person is, and you know what? I'm okay with that. I finally got to that place. And then one day, I was sitting at my desk at work, and I felt like God was talking to me about, he knew that I was kind of, for whatever reason, thinking about this gentleman that happened to be my mom's first husband. I always knew about him. Didn't know him per se, but I was thinking about him, and we were friends on LinkedIn. I felt like he was talking to me to reach out to this man, and I had never thought that he was my biological father. He's someone that has had a lot of success in his professional career, and I had somewhat followed him from a distance in his journey professionally. And I really just wanted to send him a message saying, hey, I don't know if you know who I am, but I've somewhat followed you, and it's so awesome to know somebody from, our little boon town of a place that has been so successful. I'm sure you're an inspiration to others, and me being very driven and wanting to do well in my professional career, I just really wanted to let him know that I knew who he was, and kudos to him, and it's just, I wish you well, sort of thing. So I had no angst about it. It was just very weird. It was just like, I felt like he was speaking to me to do that. I did it, and I'm like, he may never respond, like, no big deal, whatever. So we had just started this series here called Daddy Issues. And, I turn my phone off during church, don't look at it. And on that day, it was August 28th, I'll never forget, we, go grab Harper, we get in the car, and, unfortunately I am one of those people that does pull up my phone soon after to see if I missed anything. And I had a response back from him that day. And I'm like, okay, I just got out of Daddy Issues, and this guy that, used to be married to my mother just responded back to me. Holy cow, I cannot believe it. So anyways, the first thing he said to me was kudos to me for pressing the send button and to never let fear or doubt get in the way of anything that I, ever want to do. Looking back, it's just funny that's the first thing that he said. But through that, he gave me his personal email address, and we began kind of just like a penmanship via email. And he would, talk about my mom a little bit, and I'd, talk about kind of my past and my upbringing, and just through various emails in a roundabout way, one thing too, he mentioned that my dad was my stepdad immediately in the first message, and I was like, that's kind of weird that he just knows that he was my stepdad, because all these years I never knew that. So anyways, I won't go into, it's a long story, but things just weren't not starting to add up. And I had always thought that he and my mom's relationship had ended and they were no longer together when I was born. Well, that was not true. And it was the possibility that he was my biological father, but when he asked her, she denied it on multiple fronts for whatever reason. But certain details that, were shared just really made him think, maybe there's more to this than I initially thought. So he ended up reaching out to my mother. And through that, after however many years, it come to find out he is my biological father. I have several siblings. I have, aunts, uncles, or grandma that's still alive. It's still weird to me because I met him and some family for the first time in October. And through that, I should go back and say that at the end of Daddy Issues series is when I got baptized for the first time. All these things, it wasn't until I began that relationship with my Heavenly Father that all of a sudden my earthly father was now a part of my life. And I have no doubt that if it were coming here, taking, your words that you provide to us as a path, taking that home with me and really trying to listen to what he says, what he wants, it would have never, ever been possible. And the crazy thing is, this has brought my mom and I closer. My mom had closure with him on their marriage. It ended very badly, and there are things that I found out that I had no idea about as to why she made the decision that she did. And he harbors no ill will towards her. My mom is actually hanging out with my grandma today. They were very close when he and my mom were married. And she's picked up with my grandma and my now aunt like they just hung out the day before. I feel like I've provided her a sense of peace that I would have never known I would have, done. We're closer now than we ever have been in so many years. And she feels like 100 pounds lighter than what she did carrying this burden on her shoulder. For me, the relationship, it's not always easy. I mean, I'm not perfect, and every day I find, I lose my patience or something happens, but I'm reminded by his grace and his love, and I think this is a true testament to, it doesn't matter what chapter of life you're in or how old you are. I know I would go to church and, it'd be time to take communion or, things like that, and I never was baptized, and, I kind of would cringe just because, okay, well, now I feel awkward. Everyone's going to know that Cara was never baptized, but it doesn't matter what phase of life you're in. Anything is possible, and as cliche as it sounds, I thought the chapter closed on my biological father many, many years ago, and it didn't. It's just beginning at 34 years of age. He was at Harper's second birthday party, so Harper now knows Papa B from a very young age, and she's going to know Jesus from a very young age. And Mike and I have grown. Even though we started on our journeys on different paths, he's taken a path that I never thought he would take on his own. What God can do is amazing, and I'm so excited to see what this year and the next year brings. And for the first time, I have a constant faith in my life, and it's just the best thing ever. My mom and I are closer, not further apart. My mom actually has a relationship with these people that used to be her in-laws. Yes. It's crazy that this has. And my mom's not in a good place. And for her to now have this family, because she lost that family too. I mean, she was married to my dad for over 15 years, and then that family just gone. Yeah. He and my mom were 19 years apart. So when she lost him, the older you get, the better appreciation you have for age. Mm-hmm. She was 42 when she was a widow. Mm-hmm. That's really young. So just things now. I guess one thing too, I didn't say, but I'm not a lot like my mom. We look alike, but other than that, the similarities are few and far between. So I now have someone that I can see myself in, but also in that relationship, he's now told me of a Beth where now I'm like, oh, you know, sounds like I was.
Yeah.
You know, I now see her in a different light, and I can relate to her on certain things now where I just thought, I'm not like her.
Yeah.
Well, actually, her and I were a lot alike when she was younger. He typed up a letter after our weekend together, and he wrote it to my father. And sent it to me to kind of sum up our weekend. So I'll read it to you guys if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
I put this, it's on my dresser in our bedroom, just kind of as like a reminder if I'm having one of those days where I'm like, oh God, I'm like, remember this?
Right.
He wrote, Dear Jerry, you probably know who I am, but we never did get to officially meet, but I wanted to write you anyway. I wanted to write you this letter to tell you that I just had the most incredible weekend getting to know your daughter, Cara. Jerry, she is everything I'm sure you hoped and dreamed she would be. She is kind-hearted, quick-witted, a great and attentive mother, a great wife. She is loving and an all-around beautiful woman. You should be proud. The tragic irony in all of this is that I more than likely would not have had the opportunity to meet her this weekend if it had not been for your untimely and all too soon passing. Jerry, I view this opportunity for me to get to know her as a gift from you, as she was your little girl and will always be. I just want you to know that I will always respect and be so grateful to you for helping make her what she is today. And I will honor her as your baby girl and carry on and make sure that when she needs someone to be there for her, I will be. I don't know what life has in store for us, but I'm glad to be in this position and to get to know her husband Mike, who by the way is a great guy. You would love him, and Harper, who is as absolutely precious as they come. I hope that you will give us all your blessing as we carry on and get to know one another and become family to one another. Until we can meet, please take care and send much sunshine, smiles, and happiness our way. But when I first read it, I was like, Mike was listening. I was like a ball baby, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. But yeah, I'm just like, you know, and for him to be as open, and I mean, he didn't have to be.
Right.
I mean, it's just all these things that just, I would have never in a million years thought that this would happen to me. And it's not all roses, but I mean, this is a daily reminder to me. I mean, there's a lot of small stuff out there. And, you know, when Mike and I made the decision to put church and Jesus first and in our home, it's done amazing things in both of our lives. And, you know, I just love Crosspoint because it's not, you know, and you've said it a million times, but, you know, Mike grew up Catholic, and then, you know, his family switched to Presbyterian, and so he was just kind of, he didn't really want, you know, he had a different stand on church than I did. I never went to church. I longed for that. He did, and, you know, we just come from two very different backgrounds, but the thing about this place is there are so many different stories and backgrounds, and your relationship with him and what you hear and what you see is what you make it to be. And then it's not somebody telling you what it needs to be. You just give us the tools to kind of figure out what applies to us or how we can, you know, apply it to our life. And, you know, I also think the people that you surround yourself with outside of work and church or on the weekends, I think that's super important. And when you start to be around people that are more like you or what you're striving to be from their relationship with Jesus, that then starts to spill over into your life. And you see things in a whole different way. You know, so that's been really cool to see us both. We started out growing together, but on different paces. And now all of a sudden, sometimes I'm like, well, Mike's doing better than I am when it comes to, you know, I mean, I'm just so proud of him. And he feels so good about, you know, where he's come and what he's done. And I'm proud, you know, to see Harper grow up. And, you know, we're better versions of ourselves because of him, you know. And why would you not want to be a better version of yourself? When Mike told me, well, he told me he was doing man camp. And I was like, okay, you know, good for you. So I'm just like, hey, we're going to church. Positive things are happening. I'm excited about, you know, whatever you choose to do or not do, I'm not going to tell you otherwise. So we did man camp. And then next thing you know, he's like, I'm doing Fight Club, and my mouth probably was like on the floor. I was just like, oh my gosh, you are? I mean, I didn't say that, but I was like, oh, that's awesome. And, you know, especially first thing I think of is, you know, we're social people. And whenever we have anybody over, Mike's like, what can I make you to drink? You know, like, I mean, that's just like a part of our social life. I'm like, he's going to give that up for 10 weeks? Like, that's kind of a big deal. And then memorizing Bible verses, and, you know, like, he can't wait to make the cross, to put it in the yard, and just things that, you know, reading Proverbs out loud. Do you want to listen? And just, I mean, and I know his mom has been praying for us to find a church for the longest time and wanting us to have that in our life. And, you know, I was telling her Monday night that you had reached out to me and that I said I was going to do it. And, you know, she was just so proud of me, and just so proud of us. And so anyways, I just know a prayer's been answered, you know, for her as well. And, you know, we're having conversations with them about, I know small group's the next step for us. So we're obviously serving here, but we really want to try to make that a next step for our, you know, continuing on. So that's kind of our next goal. But yeah, Fight Club, I was super proud of him. Mike and I have been married over 10 years and together for almost 14. So I don't know that we've ever been happier. And I didn't think that was, I mean, not that I was miserable, but, you know, I just didn't think that was possible. To continually to just do things together that bring you closer. And I mean, you're like, can we get any closer than what we are? Yeah, you can, and you can grow in ways that you never thought possible.